1990 was a momentous and tragic year for me. Sadly, it was the year my dad passed away. His was a traumatic and life-altering death, and I was just 26 years old. Unfortunately, my dad's death was just the beginning of a 5-year season of loss. So much to experience by one so young. Today, I'll be sharing with you my journey of loss and how God met me with great grace. You want to prioritize your own soul care and self-care, but you don't know where to begin, you don't believe you have the time, and you might feel stuck, overwhelmed, or distracted. Well, I'm inviting you to join our community of women in Replenish. Replenish is coaching, training, and community to help you live a more sustainably paced and productive life. You can confidently engage a life of transformation with the ongoing support of experienced coaches and mentors. Real connection, ongoing support, lasting change. Join us now in Replenish by going to unhurriedliving.com/replenish. So let's begin with a bullet point version of our tragic losses. And now remember, all of this occurred within a 5-year period. First, my dad contracted cancer and passed away. I suffered my second miscarriage in the midst of an infertility journey. I was finally pregnant with our firstborn, but on bed rest due to severe complications. Alan was surprisingly laid off from his position at church after 8 years of service. We lost our home to foreclosure due to the Northridge earthquake. And then finally, my mother passed away from complications after heart surgery. Now, to make a bulleted list like this does not reduce these losses. Each carries its own weight and suffering, but to unpack each is too much for this brief podcast. Suffice to say, it was a very difficult 5 years. To lose parents, unborn children, livelihood, and home all in a short span felt very Job-like. And all of this occurred when I was between the ages of 26 to 31. At the time, I didn't realize how young I was. I was simply living it. But now looking back from 30 years in the future, my heart goes out to that version of me. And I'm thankful that my younger self found a way to persevere. But God gave me a very rich gift at the beginning of 1990, which was the year my dad passed away, right before he was diagnosed. And then we moved into the second half of that horrible year. God met me in one of the most powerful ways of my entire life. In late 1989, Alan had met a group of men who were on a mission to turn leaders' hearts toward Jesus. They wanted to ensure that leaders understood that abiding in Jesus was the center of ministry and that fruit that lasts emerges from our connection to the vine. Sound familiar? It was at that time that I was introduced to John 15 for the first time. I may have read it before, but it didn't click for me until one of our mentors, Chuck Miller, read it and then taught from it. The only way I can describe it is that a light bulb, or it may have been a searchlight, it went off inside of me and my world shifted and a paradigm for life emerged. John 15 says, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing." Well, this has been the song my soul hums since the day I heard it. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Remain, remain, remain. And ever since then, I've sought to orient my life around the teachings of Jesus. I've tried my best to follow the Jesus way. Imperfectly, yes. Inconsistently, of course. But I have clung to these words for over 30 years. And many years ago, as I was reflecting on those 5 years of loss, I realized that God gave me John 15 and met me profoundly in it right before it all came crashing down. I've come to think of this gift as a pillow of sorts, a soft place to stand in the midst of yearly loss. I know it could be easy to move to questioning, why did God allow all that suffering? Why didn't God fix anything? How could God let all that happen to someone so young? I could circle there. But I've spent some time hovering around these questions after the fact. But here's the thing. It was an early lesson in what abiding really means. God is with me in all things. I am in God in all things. And Christ is in me in all things. We teach and we preach this stuff, but it's proven in the way we make our way through the circumstances of our lives. Another important gift during that 5-year season was that I sensed God's presence through the community around us. People were constantly praying to keep us going in the midst. And you've had your own seasons of trial and loss. You know what I mean. As a Christian leader, abiding and remaining in the vine is one of the most central invitations we have. Jesus said it, remain in me as I also remain in you. This past summer, we stayed at a monastery in Vina, California. In addition to praying around the clock, they grow walnuts and grapes, and they create award-winning wine. I spent a part of a morning walking among the grapevines, and I created a 3-minute video describing the connection between the vine, the branches, and the fruit. I invite you to go to the show notes to find the link to that video. Take in the visual of the vine and the branch connecting, remaining, and take special note in the section on thinning. Now, abiding doesn't remove our problems, but abiding does give us a loving, solid place to stand, sit, or even lie down in the midst. So I invite you to take some time to ponder or journal. What does abiding or remaining look like for you these days? What does apart from me, you can do nothing mean to you? What visual from the video meant the most to you? Thank you for joining me on the Unhurried Living podcast. Remember, you're making your way forward one small, simple, and gracious step at a time.